On Wednesday, local residents converged upon the Board of Education's monthly meeting to express their views about the accommodation of transgender students and issues that some have called critical race theory. To accommodate the group of 100 or more attendees, the board held its meeting in the Elkton High School auditorium. During a public comment period that was not originally on the board's agenda, 23 members of the public expressed their views on the two topics that affect school systems both locally and nationally. Jessica Riedel, a board member of the Cecil County LGBTQ Alliance, spoke about the higher rates of suicide among transgender students and the effects of forcing these students to use a bathroom that does not align with their identity.
They've been there, whether we realize it or not. The real question here is why certain groups of people want to force our children to out themselves unnecessarily by going to the nurse's office, by bringing doctor's notes to prove who they are, or even worse, by being forced to use a restroom that doesn't match their gender identity. This leads to a rise in cases of bullying, increased depression, and puts a greater stress on our students who are already statistically more likely to consider or even take their own lives. As parents, educators, and members of this community, we can't stand by and allow our children to be put at this kind of risk to appease those who are afraid of who these children are.
Rising Sun resident Aggie Brown spoke about the discomfort and risk to female students who might share facilities with transgender students.
However, I have to say that I am concerned about the young girls that are going to have to be in the bathrooms with a young man. I don't want this young person to be ridiculed. I don't want this young person to be criticized. I don't want this young person to be threatened. I agree that going into the boys' bathroom is probably not the best idea. But I also don't believe that we take the needs of just one child and completely disregard the other 400, 500, 600 children who may be in that bathroom. That's where my issue is. I want your child to be safe. I want your child to be in a situation where they are protected and they don't have to worry. I truly want that.
Christine Givens, representing Cecil Solidarity, said that students need to be taught an accurate version of U.S. history that includes racial injustice and the role of Black and Indigenous people in the founding of the country.
Our kids are already talking about race, systems of oppression, and our country's ugly past. And knowing how curious kids are, they want to know more. And as parents, we all want to see our children grow up to be amazing humans and do wonderful, meaningful, and impactful things in their lives. So we do our best at home, most of us, to teach them as much as we can in terms of morals, values, and good habits. When we send them to school, we also want them to continue to be taught things that will prepare them to have a better life. This includes learning the truth about our nation in history class and how to acknowledge what has happened for centuries and what we can do to end racism and finally bring healing to our nation. You see, certain state legislators and political pundits have created a fake crisis surrounding critical race theory to scare parents in the hope that they will scare teachers away from discussing an accurate representation of past events in the U.S. But the truth is, we should be having these conversations about racism and the unvarnished truth about our nation's past with our students. As a nation, we should talk more about the consequences of slavery and the contributions this nation has had because of Black people when we talk about the foundations of our country. And dare I say that Black, brown, and Indigenous people should be considered its founding fathers, but I'll move on.
Dave Mahalis said that he thought the board should be more open about its efforts to achieve equity for underperforming minority students and should focus on all students.
But I'm here because I watched the video very carefully of the racial equity update and heard about the Maryland program for the first time, Doc, and we got some information on it, but these are very sensitive times, and I think we would like to have a little more information about what is actually being taught to our faculty and staff as it relates to that program. That a lot of us are very concerned about critical race theory, 1619 project, etc. So I think we need to be very open and honest as a school administration and a school board about these things if you want to take care of some of these fears. And I think that the sort of 800-pound gorilla, the thing that's driving this whole initiative is our performance on the state of Maryland report card and the MCAT tests. You know, that's a real foundational issue that we're trying to improve. And I think our school district as a whole is disproportionately, you know, underperforming, not just the various races, but as a whole. And there's still plenty of white kids underperforming in that area. And Dr. Floyd posed a question. He said, you know, what are we going to do about it in the middle of that presentation? So it was handled very quickly, and I felt sort of glanced over, but I thought it was a real crux of the matter.
Reverend Joshua McCord, senior pastor at Conowingo Baptist Church, said that he objected to being told how to speak about critical race theory and that teachers should not express their views in the classroom.
Critical race theory. We were told tonight how to speak about something. That if we don't go by the 5 tenets based on what they say, then I cannot speak to it. Welcome to America, where I can say what I want and ignore your thoughts. This idea that we must speak to something to the point that I am dictated to speak it is socialism, which is, as it's already been stated, the truth of where this thing comes from. And find me a socialist who wants to leave this country to go to a socialist country. We got a bunch of people who want to be socialists here. I don't see a lot of socialists wanting to go there. Teachers are pushing and promoting their agendas in the classroom, their ideologies in the classroom, and that is flat out wrong. I go through the classes, I see these signs, safe space, free space, all these things, flags, banners, all this stuff, of the individual teacher's ideologies, and that has no business in the classroom. And I'm saying that as a Christian, I'm saying that as a pastor. I understand if a student comes to one of the teachers who's a born-again believer and they've got a question about Jesus, by all means, it's been solicited, speak to it. But I don't need my kid going into a classroom and wondering if they're a dangerous person because they don't feel like they're the ones that Space Safe was made for.
Several speakers referred to a video of the March 24th CCPS school board meeting, which contains a presentation describing the Racial Equity Oversight Steering Committee, a grant-funded initiative to address performance and disciplinary disparities among various portions of the student body. The video can be viewed on the CCPS website.
Good morning, CCPS. Today is July 15th, 2021. Last night we had a board meeting that was very well attended.
Following the last speaker, by which time many people had already left the auditorium, School Superintendent Dr. Jeffrey Lawson addressed the issues that had been the focus of the evening's public comments. He repeated his message in a CCPS Facebook post the following day. In his remarks, he said that school systems in Maryland are required to address academic inequities and disproportionalities in the student population, and that policies regarding transgender students are a matter of following federal law.